All right, welcome to Talking in Stations tonight for Thursday, September the 9th. I am Rundle All-Nighter. I have a number of guests here tonight. We have Gavin and Esna from a role-playing group, and they're going to talk to Gregorian about that. I might jump in a couple questions. Of course, we have Dominic as well. We talked last week, had a good conversation. And we have Missy, who turns out she's my wife, interestingly enough. We'll talk about that and why is she on the show. And we have Maniskar in the background doing the engineering. And Abby Rova is hanging around somewhere in the background. I don't know if he's going to be on stream or not. If he does, that's cool. If he doesn't, cool as well. So we will start out. What's that?
Is he grading us? Is that what's going on?
Is he grading? Yeah, he might be just doing his own little thing. So we'll go. We got just a little bit of news, and then we'll just basically go into the interviews and have some conversations about EVE Online, our favorite game. So from a news point of view, no downtime day, right? That's the big one. They went ahead and did version 2 of the no downtime, and so if you are seeing any problems in the game, write them. Go find the website wherever they want to put it all, and tell them, hey, this doesn't seem to be working. I think we saw there's that maybe in low sec there was a tritanium belt that spawned, but now it's a little up in the air. It might have come from a site instead of a regular regular belt. So we're not quite sure if that's real or not, at least from the people. I don't know if there's anyone here who's played today or the last couple of days seen anything going a little funky.
I haven't noticed anything unusual. It's definitely seems to have gone a lot more smoothly than the last one, a bit more than a year and a half ago.
Right.
Yeah, I've been playing and it's been fairly stable. Wormholes have been fine so far and sites and stuff.
I haven't noticed anything either. I've got a question about this. Is this something that's an industry standard thing, or going to become an industry standard thing, or is EVE leading the way on this no downtime thing? Does anybody know?
No, I think they're behind, frankly.
Yeah.
They're way behind. The daily downtime
EVE,
thing. Yeah, daily downtime thing is, I want to say 10 years ago, kind of common-ish. Nowadays, not so much. It's like a weekly or bi-weekly downtime or server reset.
Yeah. I mean, back when I was getting into MMOs, like 15 years ago or so, World of Warcraft was always down for most of Tuesday until the afternoon for me. But that was a weekly downtime, and they didn't even do it when I started playing that game again a few years ago before I started playing EVE.
Yeah, now it's occasional, right? So I think right now, I mean, they're down to 3.5 minutes. It's not an enormous inconvenience, but it still happens. Other games doesn't, right? And other games have certainly sped up their downtime cycles, and hot patches and live patches and shard restarts, all those things that go into the back end of a game running. They've really accelerated the advancements in those areas across other MMOs. I think EVE's in some ways on par. I wouldn't say, my personal opinion, I don't think they're ahead of the curve if you compare to other games. But in fairness, there is no other game that is a single shard, that is just one massive universe that everyone plays, and one mistake affects everyone. In an MMO like World of Warcraft, there's lots of different servers, lots of different instances. The instance when you're going to go on a raid, it's just one instant. I mean, even in World of Warcraft now, you go on a raid, and sometimes your raid gets punted from the raid instance because the computer running that instance just shit the bed and your raid instance is gone. But no one else anywhere else in the game knows anything about that unless they're listening to you or watching you on a stream. That's not what happens in EVE, right? I mean, when we had those big battles in M2, right, we killed those shards, but there was ripples across the game elsewhere in the regions nearby, and people could tell something big was happening in EVE that day, whether it was just slowness of data. There was some services that didn't quite update when they needed to, stuff like that, right? So on one hand, the comparison and the question is valid. On the other hand, it's not. So I'm walking down the line,
right?
looking down both sides, right?
This kind of important thing for downtime to, even if it's 10 seconds, right? It logs everybody out.
Yeah.
So it's a mechanic. Well, it's not a mechanic, but it's something people use and or exploit, however you want to put it. Some people go either way on it. My question is, if it's going to get down, like say it's a 30-second downtime, you come back in. If you've got a 15-minute combat timer, you still have it.
Right.
You get logged out, but everybody comes back on 30 seconds later. Your ships are all still there. I don't know the answer to that. It'd be interesting to know.
Yeah, I don't know what happens when you start really getting down to those super fast turnaround, elements,
even 3
right?
minutes affects that 15-minute combat timer, right?
Right.
So you come back on, you've got 12 minutes left. You don't log back in, but your ship is still there.
So yeah, I know that I have crashed sometimes and somehow magically logged back in and beat the safe warp away timer. Like where I've logged back in and I'm still right where I was when I crashed. That has happened occasionally in some of these bigger nullsec battles. Normally, you lose complete connection, and by the time you get back, the game has just warped you away out of bubbles and everything. They just kind of get you away. But there's been a few times. So what happens, like exactly, Dom, if they improve it to the point where during downtime, when whatever you were doing, you come back and you're still doing it exactly where you were, or whatever's being done to you.
I think that'd be a good thing,
yeah.
But I just don't know the answer to whether that's happening or not.
Yeah, well, and Nick Bison's obviously in chat, exactly, that was the point where I was going to go, right? 3.5 minutes now was way better than the half hour it used to be, and almost 1 hour. I mean, you almost guaranteed it was an hour way back 14, 15 years ago, right? It was.
So I remember getting skill points because you'd be down for an entire day way back.
Right. They were worried about it. So, well, I guess in Ren Gaming said it's been laggy. He's seen some lag and stuff. I would expect the lagginess might be probably the most common side effect right now if they're doing well. It'll be interesting to see what they find. So we got 4 or 5 players here. No one's seen anything. So there's a number of people in the chat already. No one's seen anything yet. So maybe it's going well. Who knows? What I don't know, here's a question. I don't know how long they're going to run it for. Meaning, are they just going to wait till next Tuesday and then do the downtime? Or are they going to try to wait a week? Or are they going to wait 3 days? Like when are they going to go back to the reset? Does anyone know?
I thought they were just going to do it for 1 day.
Yeah, it's just 1 day. They're resetting like tomorrow is normal.
Oh, okay. I totally missed that then. I totally missed that part.
Yeah. Last time they did it, it sounded like they were testing to see what stuff broke without downtime, and then now they've fixed what they found, I guess, and they're doing it again to see if they find they're breaking more stuff.
Got it.
Yeah, I imagine each test they'll probably try to add or change more things each time to get to the point where they don't ever need it again, except for major content.
Right.
Ads.
All right. So okay, well that's really the news. That was it. That's the big news part. So let's talk role playing. Let's talk with Esna and Gavin and Gregorian, and let's kind of go into some of that history, and let's get on that topic.
Okay. Would either of you like to introduce yourselves, who you are, and what your organizations are?
Gavin, would you like to take that?
Sure, I can start. So I play the character Gavin Locri, who has been in Pi Inc. for 17 and a half years now. And I've been running it for on and off for much of that time, and with a bunch of other really cool people. We're a very strange group. We fly Amarr ships only, and only accept characters that were born in Amarr. So we're a very niche, unique group, but we've kind of kept the flag going for Amarr Roleplay nonstop for the last 18 years. Pi was a first day corporation. And then for most of the last 10, we've been in faction warfare. And we've recently just left that to join our long-term allies in Kimi Harar. And I think I'll pass it off to Esna.
I'm Esna Patuji. I've been in the game since, well, on this character since 2007. I've bounced around a bit at that time. I've did some stints with various also Amarrian loyalist roleplay organizations, some with a CVA ally, a brief stint in faction warfare. I've also done some things of questionable loyalty. My path is one that sort of weaves in and out of explicit loyalist groups. So I'm been with SFRIM, which is my corporation within Kimi Harar, for about 5 years now, and I've been with Kimi Harar since it was formed about 3 years ago.
Excellent. I have one quick question right away, Gavin. When you say born in Amarr, you mean anywhere in Amarr space, not the Amarr system, right?
Itself. Yeah, anywhere in Amarr space. They have to. The rule is natural born Amarr subject.
Got it. Okay, excellent. And so I think you are the longest running day one corporation that's still on the server. Is that an accurate statement?
Not quite. Taggart Transdimensional beat us by a few minutes, and they still are sporadically active. Okay. But we're still 2 or 3, and I think we're the most active of that top 10 list.
At that point, it just, it's impressive anyways. You guys are all like first dayers, first day corps, and you're still going, right? So, whether there's 2 or 3 or 4 of you guys are all like on a pedestal when it comes to EVE and longest running corps. That's fantastic. So let's talk about Gregorian. I know that you have some specific things you want to cover. Jump in here and go with your questions.
So, what were the circumstances of Pi's merger into Kimi Harar Lumen?
Sure.
Like it was interesting to notice that. I'm not really heavily involved with the role play, but I like to keep track of it, and a lot of my friends are a lot more involved than me. So it was interesting to see that Pi joined Lumen. So
yeah, so it became clear Pi was going to leave faction warfare one way or another. Faction warfare is very hard on corporations, and you'll notice that most faction warfare corporations struggle. And eventually enough people in Pi were ready to leave it and go back to doing more empire-focused things. A few years ago, we got official recognition from the Empress and made into a militant chapter called the Exubitorist Chapter of the Sacred Throne Order. And so we're leaning into this theme of the Paladins of the Sacred Throne and doing anything that supports Amarr. And that moves us slowly away from faction warfare. And then we got to the point where we were leaving it. At which point I reached out to Lunaris, the leader of SFRIM, and asked whether or not we were interested in a alliance with them. Because we'd been allies with SFRIM ever since they were formed 8 years ago. Some of the members have been friends since 2007, like a long-term friendship. And then, so I reached out to them and saw what they would think. And then I think Esna should take it from there.
So Lunaris actually approached me quietly about this, Lunaris being our alliance executor, and brought up the question of, would we like to have Pi in the alliance? And we bounced some internal questions around. There was some initial question of, well, Pi has this militant order thing going on. SFRIM, on the other hand, was originally sort of a non-combat place for pilots to live. We sort of were originally designed to be a not in fact war place, ironically, for players to live who weren't interested in that constant grind of combat. We've definitely been forced to grow teeth since then, through various events and combats and wars. But the question was, would we be some concern about Pi losing its specific field, its specific feel that it goes for? And I think Gavin was able to answer those questions for me very, very excellently. And at that point, we were all for it. Lumen's theory of operation is sort of a big tent theory of Amarrian loyalists. We have the whole spectrum of Amarrian loyalists, from long-term dedicated loyalists to people who bounce in and out and exist more on the fringes. So Pi definitely had a place with us, along with the various other wide cast of characters we have within our ranks.
And another thing I think worth pointing out is that the high-sec war mechanics have changed. So 5 years ago, it was fine for Pi to have its own little alliance and for SFRIM to have its alliance, and we could work together in Thebeka to do some sort of defense of the Empire. Cross-Logi not working anymore really breaks that. So if Pi wanted to be part of the same high-sec wars as Lumen, we needed to be under the same tent, is another major factor in approaching them, and I think the alliance going forward.
Excellent. Hey, by the way, just nth dimensional, thank you very much for the raid. And if the audience has questions for our guests and about roleplay, please, I'll do my best to try to bring them in as well. All right. So where are we?
Pi is exactly, is it short for something, or is that PIE? What is Pi?
So originally it was just someone thought it was funny to have a court named Pi. However, eventually we backronymed it to Praetoria Imperialis Exhubitoris, which is bad Latin for the imperial guards of the emperor, basically. And then since then, we've sort of shifted gears to becoming the Exhubitoris chapter.
I have a question. So you were doing faction warfare, and you said you wanted to leave that area space. So where exactly are you living now? Is it high sec? Is there a low sec? Are you having strictly high sec fights? Is there low sec involved?
We're doing a little bit of everything in. So the basic idea is that Pi should do things that help Amarr. Some of our members are still going to be involved doing low-sec warfare, supporting the militia, just not being an official part of it. Others are going to be doing high-sec things, some wormhole work maybe. We just yesterday went out to help an allied Caldari group in Syndicate. So it's really anything that helps Amarr. And I expect we're going to move to 2 or 3 different distributed places. Currently, we have a base in Khanid and a base in Kador, and all over the place.
Cool. Silly question. Can you go to Jita to buy stuff, or do you strictly have to buy stuff from Amarr?
We can go to Jita, but I prefer it if we bolster the Amarr economy.
What about Heck?
You?
Not quite as bad as hell.
Rens? Yeah. Would you go to Rens on a if you're stuck for it?
So what about? No, okay, sure.
Only if you're somehow hurting the Matari economy through your market manipulations, then I'm okay with it.
Fair enough. So, other role-playing groups and corps, if you really want to hey, I'd like to do role-playing in EVE, and you haven't started, is there a kind of a place to go find it? I mean, there's some chat in the stream right now where, hey, just go into faction warfare first. A lot of people relate role-playing with faction warfare. I know that's not true, but is there a place where people can go find, let's say, if you want to be role-play in the greatest race, Caldari, where would I go?
I thought Caldari was the second greatest after Amarr.
No, you're wrong.
No one wants.
Do you want to take this as no?
It doesn't exist. Yeah.
Yeah. The real question is, where would I go find?
So, of course, the EVE Online forums themselves have a small section dedicated to lore and roleplay, and searching through the names on there is a not actually terrible way to find the people who care about that aspect of the game. There is also a Discord server, a number of Discord servers for various groups. The Amarrian Roleplay Coalition does run a Discord server. I'm not sure if the Caldari groups do something similar, but we have a Amarr Roleplay Discord server.
Okay, that's good to know.
Also in game, there's a channel called The Summit that was founded because of me station camping a Star Fraction member and us role playing while they were being camped in 17 years ago. And that's run by a group of several different type of role players from all sorts of different groups. And that's an in-character channel in the game that's been around for about 16 years and is a good place to just see who's active in role playing in any given time zone.
Okay. Another question from the group, from the channel, from the audience, I guess is the best way to put it. So, okay, role playing aspect of EVE, what would you add to the game to make role playing feel better, however you decide better? And then what, in terms of EVE being a role playing game, how does it rank? I mean, does it satisfy your role playing needs, or do you have to go elsewhere to do other role playing? In other words, how hard is it to be a role player in EVE? Those are the two questions.
Sure.
Well,
open bucket, right? Yeah, big one.
Yeah. Actually, I'll take a stab at the first one. Right now, the ability of players to interact with the NPCs is somewhat limited. You can you can do missions or engage in faction warfare to modify your standings for them, but the standings amount to a small break on tax and some NPCs that fly after you in high-sec space when you have very negative standings. Those NPCs are not particularly threatening. It's actually safer for me to fly a freighter in Minmatar space where the NPCs come attack me because they will web me into warp. So that is really it. Beyond that, you sort of live at the whim of if a CCP employee happens to notice your efforts. I would really like to see a better way to interact with the NPCs to be able to gain recognition for your organization. Maybe some sort of larger scale. I don't want to use the word missions because missions in EVE has a particular connotation, but larger scale missions that would have to be accomplished on the corporation level to gain recognition.
Strongly agree with that. I've been saying for a while, ever since I stuck my nose into Elite for a little bit, that I would love to see something like the background simulation in Elite, where you're doing missions actually changes the landscape of which corporations in the game are doing well. That would be amazing to have in EVE. The other huge thing CCP could do, and this one's easy, to make roleplay better, is put a link to the in-game news somewhere in-game. You have this, and on the old community website, you have one dev that has been just really doing a ton of work keeping a news feed going about roleplay things and all the events happening in the game, and all the shenanigans between the different empires and so on. And it used to be that news would show up when you logged in. It would show up on the billboards. You could click a link in game when you were a bit bored and read the news. With the whole backlash against anything roleplay that happened in 2011, that sort of got quietly removed. And it would be really nice to have a link to the news on the initial login page, or the launcher, things like that, or just in game on the agency or something like that. And that would just be huge if that was the case.
The standings thing is something that I think CCP could easily help role-playing with. Not only for a positive thing, for a negative thing. Like as a Caldari pilot, you shouldn't be able to dock in Galante structures, right? They shouldn't be allowed to. They're the enemy.
In Galante space, right?
Galante space, yeah. In Galante space, yeah. But all the different ones who are fighting each other. I've never understood why they can't do it. And it's the same thing with negative security stats. I'm negative 6 point something to Galante, so they chase me everywhere. I shouldn't be able to dock in any of their structures in high sec. I don't understand why they have never done that. Have you guys ever brought something like that to CCP and asked for them? Is there any communication with them about stuff like that?
I mean, oh, sure. In the ancient past, that was one of the things I remember people suggesting. The standing system is a mess. Like, especially the corp standing system. So, and like we can kind of see that with more recent stuff in Pochvin, where they almost didn't seem to have invented something of a new standing system. I think they'd have to rebuild it from the ground up to have any consequences to it beyond what they already have.
Oh yeah, the standing system is definitely something I've thought would need to be reworked pretty heavily for PVE or RP improvements. I have one more question, and then we have to move on to our next guest. Since Pi left Faction Warfare recently, and there's generally a consensus that Faction Warfare needs a few improvements, do you have any thoughts on what you would want to improve about Faction Warfare?
Sure. So there's huge threads around mechanics and things like frontline mechanics and all that, and I generally agree with those. But the easier thing that isn't mechanical is stories. So when Faction Warfare released, it had maybe 1 year worth of story for it. And then they just let it run in the background after that 1 year was up. And recently, the developer doing lore stuff, Delegate Zero, did a plot in which there was a roleplay reason to fight in Floss Eswin. And that brought people out, and Floss Eswin had something like 1,000 kills in a system a month. I think 3,000 was the peak. And it became the hottest system in Faction Warfare because a developer said, hey, there's a reason to actually fight for this system rather than the others. Just doing things like that, where Faction Warfare has a reason to be involved in other than just endless LP farming, would be probably the biggest change. Then there's other stuff that's just, I don't know how that it's fixable. I mean, not being able to choose your allies is really rough on a group. And the 24-hour mechanics where you have to take a system, you have to grind it nonstop for basically 48 hours. That's really hard on a group, and it really hurts your retention. And you have to build structures that don't make any sense anywhere else in EVE. And I don't know how you fix that without a total revamp.
Yeah, that's always been a bit of a distraction for me for Faction Warfare. It's just that the timelines, the way you talked about it. That's a great answer. I hope CCP is listening to that.
So when CVA moved away from doing the role play, how bad did that affect the community? Because I know you were around for that.
CVA stayed doing some role play all the way till now. They still have a small role player group. Pi split from CVA. I was in the hot seat for that. And what happened there is that CVA and Pi worked very well together right until we invaded Providence. And when we took Providence, that drug the whole center of mass of CVA into Providence, which then meant no one was there to defend Amarr. And so that caused Pi to pull away from CVA and eventually to decide to leave it because we realized our priority just wasn't Providence. But CVA still stayed Amarr loyal all the way through, and they still have a small group, especially Kyle Saltz, who do push for Amarr themes.
Oh, yeah, I like Kyle. He's a good guy.
I was in Severance back the day when we were for the Providence thing. I was part of that. So you could see a palpable change in CVA as they kind of slowly moved away from the majority to the role play. So I know that was a big group, so I didn't know how much that affected the overall. And I'd like to point out that Esna, I saw see that you were in Wolf's Brigade. I also was in Wolf's Brigade for a while.
Oh, really? I didn't know. I'm not sure
2010.
if we were there at the same time. It was right about when First General left.
I was there with First General, so I was like 2010-ish area.
Yeah, it's probably about the same time. We may very well have been in the Corp together, yeah.
And then, unfortunately, I was the one of the two people who smart bombed the Amarr coronation event. I don't know if you remember that or not.
No, I was already gone from the Wolf's Brigade by that point, I believe.
So for those
some
people,
points.
Yeah. So for those people listening, a few days from this recording on YouTube and stuff, I asked a question about, how's EVE for roleplay, and Esna was nice enough to type it in chat. I'd like to give Esna just a minute to read basically what he wrote so that people could hear, because I think it's a really good answer.
Oh, thank you. What I said is, it's a unique experience. No other game affords the ability to commit to your positions with actual material on the field, setting your own goals, and being able to materially achieve them. On the other hand, on the personal level of individual characters, it's pretty much self-driven. EVE doesn't mechanically support that. So I do also engage in role play in other games. I DM a D&D group with some close friends, but I wouldn't say EVE's roleplay scene is bad by any means. Much like EVE itself, compared to other games, it's a definitely unique experience.
Yeah, very much so. And one thing EVE has that is absolutely unique is the need to accommodate non-role players in your role play. I can't go, I'm not interacting with you, non-role player, if that non-role player is actively shooting my Astra House. Like that they are interacting in the story whether either of us likes it. And so I don't know of any other roleplay experience where the role players have to have teeth the way they do in EVE.
I see. I'm of the opinion that everyone who plays EVE is a role player, right? Because I'm not Dominarch, right? I'm playing the role of Dominarch when I play the game. Now, the different levels of role play obviously are vastly. There's a huge variation between that,
Yeah.
but
I totally agree with that. Like I'm Rundle. Our next guest, my wife, doesn't call me Rundle around the house, for sure not, right? Unless she's like getting pissy about EVE online, right? So, but I push the Caldari point of view all the time, and I've made this statement many times. This is why I'm not on camera, because I'm Rundle. I mean, this is the character. This is who I am in this game, right? So in some way, I think EVE, on whole, is role playing. Period. All right. So, well, I'd like to thank you guys, Esna and Gavin, very much for joining us. There's lots to talk about. Maybe the audience will come up with some questions, or Gregorian, Abby, or whoever else, and maybe we'll have you back and we'll talk some more about this on another time, and just to kind of have a drop in from occasion, see how things are going.
Thank you very much for being here. Yeah, that's awesome. I love talking about it. I mean, I don't do it. I love talking about it.
Yeah, it's fun.
Thanks for having us.
Indeed. I appreciate it.
Absolutely great to have been here. Thank you very much.
Yeah. One last thing. Can people find Gavin? Where do they want to find you or Esna online if they want to engage? Just find your in-game name, Esna and Gavin, and hit you up if they want to do role-playing. Is that the best way?
Yeah, that would be probably the best ways. Pi has a channel called Sacred Throne, and SFRIM has a channel called The Good Word. Those are both our public channels, and they're roleplay channels, so those would be good places as well.
Excellent. Good. So you guys want to role play the audience, or you want to get into saving Amarr's butt somewhere, look those people up and go give it a go. Great. So thank you very much. All right. So on to our next guest here, which is my wife. Her name is Missy. And today is our wedding anniversary. And I told her I had a big surprise for her. Go ahead, Dom.
Which one?
Well, we're going to get to which one it is. It's an odd question. But I told her I had a big surprise for her, a big night planned that I was going to have. She was going to spend it with a lot of people. And there was going to be people who are going to want to just talk to her. And little did she know, EVE kind of trumped. So, the whole thing here. And anyways, I'll let her say hello.
Hi, everyone. I'm Missy. I am the EVE Widow of Rundle.
All right. So, and apparently her mic is still cutting out a little bit, but that's all right. We'll work through this. So, which wedding anniversary is this? Well, so in a little bit of real life, um, you know, in Texas where we live, there's a thing called an informal marriage. Common law, that sort of stuff. But we went and we were supposed to get married on September the 9th in 2019. She had started a new job and couldn't do the travel. And so we just kind of said, all right, we're going to just be married and we'll go do the informal thing. We got our certificates, months later, and did all that stuff. And come pandemic September 9th last year, 2020, we're like, well, let's set that up. There's going to be no travel. So then let's go and get what's called a formal marriage certificate, go to the court, go in front of the judge or whatever he was. And it was just us two and the judge, or was it a commissioner of oath or whatever? What was he? He's a what?
He was a judge.
He was a judge. Okay. All right. So, and then so we got married 1 year ago, formally, informally 2 years ago. So, yeah. So, anyways, that was the. So that's why it's our anniversary today. And so I started thinking, well, you know what? Let's talk about. I'm going to bring her on, and let's talk about Eve, right? Because Eve doesn't just impact us, the players, when we have partners. And those partners have to understand and play a bit of a role, right? So absolutely, I talk all the time at home. Yes, I do, Nick. And yes, Alex Wildstar, it is all your fault. So here's where I'm going to go with this. So let's actually, Missy. So we talked a little bit today about this, and I think you had a great starting perspective. So let's talk about what games mean to you. Where did it start for you, and how do you get into games and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, so when I was a kid, my parents wouldn't buy me an Xbox or a PlayStation or anything like that because I was a girl. So I got the PC Barbie games. So Barbie Dress Up Wedding and Barbie Owns a Horse, and you ride through the pasture and you find like a note and stuff and you go on this little adventure. So I tend to like games today that are still very much so like that, kind of turn-based, you're going on adventures, and a lot more visual, I would say. So like one of my top favorites right now would be WoW, because it's very vast, lots of different worlds and islands and stuff that you can explore. But yeah, I like pretty things because I started with Barbie.
So you tried Eve, right? Like a couple of years ago, I somehow suckered you into trying this game. We have been playing World of Warcraft. That's WoW for those people who don't know that. We've been playing World of Warcraft occasionally, and I can tell you really like it because you'd go play that by yourself. You didn't even need me to play Eve. It was literally like I had to find you and entice you with, I don't know, a pair of shoes or something. Like, come, I'll buy a pair of shoes if you come play Eve. Come play Eve with me or something, right? So.
Yeah, it was definitely a get on this boat or be an Eve widow. So I was like, all right, I guess I'll try rowing on the boat for a little bit. We'll see.
So what did you think of Eve, right? So when you started playing, kind of what was your first impressions, if you remember it, or maybe it's been totally unforgettable, or it's totally forgettable, sorry.
Yeah, no, I like Eve. I think it's a really great game. I just don't think it really fits into my personal style of gameplay. Like I like how it's so vast, but that one time you showed me a map, I was like, wow, that's really a lot. And then he said, oh, that's just one section. Here's the whole map. I was like, that's just too much. That's too much to get into almost. So it almost seems a little bit overwhelming. And I like games where I'm not necessarily fighting against other people because those other people tend to be better than me. So they kill me a lot faster and then I get really upset and competitive. So it was just kind of a combination of I'm not naturally good at the game. I got a little bit flustered with it, not really knowing where to look. I know if I spent more time, I'd be able to get over that, but it wasn't instant gratification for me.
Yeah. So we haven't really played World of Warcraft together in a while because, I started playing Eve again a whole lot more. And subsequently, and I think maybe a lot of people in the audience have struggled with this, all of a sudden now there's a definite I'm playing Eve versus anything else that's going on. What's I kind of know a little bit of this, but I actually didn't talk to you a lot about this because I want to I'm really curious what your real reaction is because you haven't really said too much. So I'm really curious. What do you think about it when I go and I sit down and I play Eve for like 16 hours?
I think, I mean, part of me thinks it's great because I think that couples need different hobbies and they need something to talk about at the end of the day. And if we're doing all the same things together, then we don't have anything new to talk about. But there are some times where like you're playing and you're just playing and that's fine. And then you're podcasting and somehow I'm supposed to know the difference between you podcasting and you just talking to someone on the game. So it runs together a lot, but it also gives me time to just clean the house how I like to have it clean. So it's kind of a take 6 doesn't half the other.
Yeah. So the war, right? What's your perspective on the war? Because Eve's the type of game. You're supposed to leave your hobbies, or leave work at work and come home to home, right? Eve is a game where you're at home and you're playing, and so then, like, I know there was a war, and something about it. So, what's your perspective of how I handled the war, or what happened during the war, whatever?
Yeah, you fight a lot. I mean, and it's a back and forth. Like at one point, your team was kicking ass. Another point, they were kicking your ass, and then someone quit, and everyone got mad. So I don't know. I guess it's it's kind of, if you're not really paying too close attention to it, you have no clue what's really going on.
How much consoling did he need?
Oh, well, he didn't get much because it happened right before I had a surgery. So I was like, that sucks for you, but now you have to take care of me.
As it should be, yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Exactly. That was I know I was super salty, and she was like, "Oh, okay, that's too bad for you. I baked a pie here. Have some pie." Oh, by the way, it's surgery, so who cares, anyways? So yeah, I think she's kind of enjoyed though the last month. I mean, she had surgery, and so I had to take care of her, and we did a little bit of personal travel.
That's when
and
you
stuff.
Put the sleeping pills in the pie, right?
Yeah, she probably. Yeah. And so, but I've been able to spend some more time on the house and stuff like that. So, and Eve has been, we talked about last week. I had to take a little bit of a 30-day break because I was not super happy about what happened. So.
It's great that the honey-do list is getting shorter and shorter now, so that is a good outcome.
Yeah, for now, until the Alliance joins another nullsec block, which, by the way, I haven't told her yet. We're back in nullsec, and there's another war, smaller one, but yeah. See, whoops, did I fail to mention that? I'm so sorry.
Just a little bit. It's okay. Just let me know when I have to bring dinner next to your computer.
See, now that's why I married her right there. Yeah, I'll take questions from the audience, and if any of you guys have questions for her as well, absolutely. So I think the thing I also want to really talk about is kind of what happens, when I play. Like, can you tell when I've had a good night playing versus a bad night playing? Like, maybe it's my own personal flaw. Do I really bring that down into the rest of the house? And does it last a long time or?
So I think you more so often bring like, man, I really took out this many ships and it was so awesome. I don't hear too many stories about when your fleet failed. So I don't think you bring any anger to the rest of the house. But when you have a really big win, you're whooping to tell me about it, which I think is great.
Yeah, I think I try not to talk about the downside because I can be pretty salty at times. There's no doubt about it. But I think I try to remember to just leave that at the computer.
Well, and rarely are you going to be bragging about killing many ships. I mean, be fair.
Yeah, right. Wow. And there's a few times during the war where the kill board's, like 60, 80, 90 a night. Like, we had some pretty good battles. Sure, for sure. Yeah, one of the audience wants to know how I'm such a lucky son of a bitch. And I'm like, well,
You're a lucky son of a bitch. That's just
it's just how it is. It's how I roll. It's just my boyish good looks.
Sense of humor.
My sense of humor, yeah.
I have a question. When was the first time? Did Rundle have to sit you down and be like, okay, so look, I have this other thing in my life. Like, did he have to talk to you about it?
We had been playing World of Warcraft, and he had talked about wanting to get back into EVE, which I knew that he had played a while before that. And he had said a couple times, no, you don't understand, the term EVE Widow is a thing for a reason. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, sure, that's fine. And then he started playing it, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah. It's kind of like, and it's similar to football. Like a football widow, I kind of know the terminology and when something good happens and when something bad happens. But if you ask me to talk the playback to you, I'd be like, something happened.
So what about the 6 paid for accounts versus and the 1 non-paid account, 7 accounts? Like, I kind of told you that today, and you kind of turned your head around and looked at me like, whoops, did I forget? Another whoops, did I fail to mention I had that many accounts?
I know that you have that many accounts. I mean, every now and then I think that would be a very nice pair of shoes or a new dress or getting my hair done. But if that's what keeps you happy at the end of the day and you're not mortgaging our house against it, I'm okay.
Yet.
Yes, yet, exactly.
Yeah. So there was someone up there kind of joked, but I'm like, I said this to her, like, maybe you could just play the game and come do my market work for me, or, fly a freighter and move goods around for me. Like, just come be my space slave.
Oh, that sounds like fun.
I don't remember those exact words, but so the games I like to play, I tend to play more support characters like a healer or something where I can step back and kind of support, right? So based on that, we thought, well, maybe you could do the freighter and gather up all this stuff and it would help out. And I think we tried that for a little while, but that's kind of when I had already decided that it was not necessarily the game for me. Yeah, but I don't remember the space slave terminology exactly.
Well, I might have been, maybe it's just in my head. Like, we do have slaves in the game. You can get them, and there's probably an outfit or two that goes along with it in my head. My little sexy space captain sitting up there, and fly that freighter in that lingerie outfit or something. Why not? Hey.
I can't believe you went to freighter all. You should have had her in a command destroyer as your booster. She could be behind you on the front lines, giving you boosts.
You must make her do all the crap work. Don't do it, Missy. Don't do it.
No, when we started playing, we were running missions, and I was actually having her help with supplementary DPS and taking care of the smaller ships that came in close, right? So I would fly a battle cruiser or a battleship or something, and she would fly a cruiser or a destroyer or something like that. And we would coordinate. We would sit side by side. Okay, we're going to go in, and I'll take care of the bigger ships. And as these smaller ships come in, anything under 10 kilometers, you take care of those. And just to teach her, here's how the guns work, here's how the drones work. And we set up her ship to deal with things only in the 10, 15K range anyways. Don't bother wasting for the longer stuff. And it was a way for me to try to slice the game up to be able to say, just focus on those 3 things instead of those 23 things. And she did really well with it. It just obviously didn't catch her attention the way I had hoped, right? So oddly enough, we separate up things in World of Warcraft the same way. Normally she's healing, like take care of me here or there. But when she's doing DPS, I would be like, okay, you take care of this one or you take care of that one. We would talk through those things as well, right? So, yeah.
So you're not just a good team in real life, you're a good team in games too.
Yeah, I would say that's true. I don't know if anyone heard what she said. She said, absolutely, Rundle's the best. I think that's what she said.
That's exactly
fun,
it.
Doing it like you were talking about, working as a team, doing missions, that could be something that a couple could do for sure. Once you get into nullsec, though, it's all bets are off. You're just.
Yeah, it's certainly. nullsec. I mean, I warned her about the difference of high sec and low sec and null sec, and there's a part of me I think that I'd almost like to unleash the beast. I'd like to see her in like a null sec situation where someone's shooting her and she gets that anger, that moment of anger, and then just watch the trigger flick. I'm gonna go.
That's the part that stressed me out, like when we're traveling and he's like, all right, we're going to go through this piece of space and you got to go really quick, and it stressed me out, like trying to click the button in time to make sure that nobody caught me. And I don't know, that just, it stressed me out more than it like was exciting to me, because I'm not a big fighter style gamer. I don't think, I mean, I'm really competitive and I will like curse like a fighter, but I just prefer not to.
Yeah, I think also the there's a point in the chat where like in terms of the gratification aspect, right? World of Warcraft for sure has a much more speedier gratification curve, right? You can just hop into your character and right from the get-go, you're fighting things, you're gathering things, you're doing things, right? And Eve has that in a limited way, but then there's just this long grind to get to the next step of the game. We've talked about that in new player experiences, and I draw a lot on watching her play to kind of realize, like, yeah, I mean, I'm sitting here helping her, and I can't help her beyond it other than time. You would only need time and more play time, and if it doesn't catch you, it doesn't catch you, and it didn't catch her the way I'd hoped, right? So
that just means she's normal, right?
Yeah, that's probably.
I appreciate the game for what it is. I think it's really awesome. I just don't. I like you said, it didn't catch me. I just don't connect with it as much as I do other games, unfortunately.
Long periods of nothing, followed by frenzied moments of stress. That's exactly the way of putting it. That's the fun, stress. Yay.
Yeah,
that's what.
Yeah, there's it's an easy game to get caught into that 10, 12, 14-hour play thing. World of Warcraft, really hard to do that. The only other game, the MMO, years and years ago that I started with was EverQuest, and there were times where I'd play EverQuest for 3 days straight, 4 days straight, 3 days, and then I'd tire out, or I'd 4 or 5 days and only log off for an hour, or have someone come over and play my character because I was camping. I sit at my computer, I'm going to take an hour nap because I'm camping some rare spawn, and that was the way the mechanics were, is that it would spawn once in 7 days, and or a 20% chance of spawning every day sort of mechanics, some weird thing like that, and you needed it for your special weapon or whatever. And there were some times where I played that game by just sitting there doing effing nothing for 3 or 4 days. World of Warcraft, they solved that problem. They saw it happening in EverQuest. Rift, they also saw it. EVE Online, it's the players that force, and the tie-dye, the time dilation, that causes us to sometimes engage in these 14, 16 hours sitting in a computer. But even without the combat, I can sit and play EVE for 14, 15, 16 hours. There's enough things to do. I can't do that in World of Warcraft. I cap out after about 6 hours in WoW.
By yourself, though, right? If you're
By
in
myself.
a raiding group, it's a different.
That's true. That's true. Like if we get,
you're on there for a long time.
That's true. Actually, that's very fair. If we, when we did because Missy and I did some raiding, and there was a few times where we'd sit down and they're like, "All right, we're new content. Everyone get on at 10 a.m. Saturday morning. We're going to try and beat this content," and we're still playing at 10 o'clock at night, trying to get through the content, right, and trying to learn the damn raid. That happened with her a couple times. And so I guess in fairness, a raid when you're with other people, and you're chatting and you're on comms and you're having fun, it's just like going out with your friends. It can last all night, right? Last the whole time. So yeah, local farming AA points in EQ EverQuest. That was a full-time job. Absolutely.
Well, thank God you only have 6 full-time jobs now with your 6 accounts.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, I'd like to congratulate you guys on your anniversary. That's fantastic. So
very much.
First or the second? Which are you congratulating us on?
I don't know. Maybe the third.
Well,
that's a tough one. I would say the second.
Yeah, I mean, in Texas and the United States of America government, the 2 years is what they recognize, but the rest, countries and states who don't recognize common law would only recognize it as one. So that's why we did it, frankly, because as we all know, I'm from Canada, and so wanted to protect myself overall completely, etc. So
I think I call it 2.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
so
think it's
the
definitely
6th
2.
now. My wife and I hit 24 years. So.
Oh, nice.
Jesus, 24 years. Oh my God.
I know.
Congratulations.
Most people can't put up with me more than 6 months. So I mean, she's quite the stalwart character there.
I thought you were actually only about 17. You just looked that old from the stress of playing Eve.
Oh, I act like a 12-year-old. But I am very old. Stress of playing Eve.
Excellent. All right. Well, any other questions, either from the audience or here from these chuckleheads?
Yeah.
For my lovely wife. All right. See, I mentioned chucklehead, and Abby speaks up. Go ahead.
Right away.
Oh, thanks, Rundle. How do you put up with him? I mean, not even when he's not playing Eve, just on a day-to-day basis.
We have a very similar sense of humor that a lot of people probably wouldn't get, but we snark a lot at each other and it cracks us up. So we get along very, very well.
Yeah, I definitely think you have a bit of his sense of humor. One thing
Absolutely
I like one thing I like you mentioned is that it's important to have shared hobbies together that you both do, and then also your hobbies apart.
Yeah, exactly. I remember when I was younger, my aunt and my uncle, they literally had their separate hobby rooms. And I thought that was kind of bizarre. But now that I'm grown up and I'm married and we're living together, I'm like, oh, yeah, I totally get that now. Like, it's nice just to kind of have your own space. And then you've got something to talk about at the end of the day. And when Rundle has a game where he can literally get lost in for hours, then we've got a lot to talk about at the end of the day.
And if he's after playing for 15 hours and he's coming to bed at 4, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, do you let him get into bed and wake you up, or does he have to sleep on the couch?
My policy is, as long as you don't wake me up, I don't care what you do. You could be watching a Disney movie or a dirty movie. Just do not wake me up when you crawl into bed.
Yeah, don't wake me up. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Oh no, I get in serious trouble when I go to bed late after playing Eve, because invariably I end up waking her, and then
yeah. I'm full disclosure. 99% of the time, I do not wake her up. She does very well with 8 hours of sleep. She does not do very well with 6, 5, 4, 3, 2 hours of sleep. It's whatever number it is, whatever number less than 8. Yeah.
Yeah, he's lucky I'm a pretty heavy sleeper the first couple hours. So as long as he comes in at a reasonable time, he's pretty safe.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right. Well,
I don't know. Sorry, I think that'll be hard to do. I mean, his name is Rundle All Nighter, and he likes to go all night, doesn't he?
Yeah. Well, that's why I was joking. Whether I try to keep it at 8 hours, giving her 8 hours of sleep, but sometimes that gets cut down to 1. So, all right. All fun aside, thank you very much, Missy, for coming on. I love you bunches. Thanks for sticking with me and marrying me. And I'm glad we could spend some time on our anniversary doing something special. And thanks for our guests, Dom and Abby and Manascar, and thanks to the audience. I appreciate it. We will wrap up on the show and call it a wrap for September the 9th. Thanks for joining us, everyone. See you guys later.